Hello and good evening. Today it is Sunday, March 12th, 2023. And for this video today, this will be another episode of the Prototype Files here on my channel. As I usually say at the start of these videos, let's cue the pretend wind sound in the background. Okay, we're going to skip that. So basically, as I always say at the start of these videos, obviously in professional sports, when teams do special event uniforms, especially third jerseys and jersey redesigns for their home and away jerseys, more often than not, usually teams will go through at least a few prototypes before the final design is unveiled to the masses, or sometimes those designs also end up getting scrapped. So today, this design, when I saw it, caught my eye because, you know what? I'm going to tell you something. A few years ago, about 4 years ago, this design was actually scrapped. So let's go back to just before the 2019-20 season. Supposedly, the Minnesota Wild were slated to get a new third jersey for the 2019-20 season. And supposedly, it was a black third jersey with the same Minnesota Wild wordmark logo that they had on their dark green third jersey from the Reebok era, but on a new black jersey design with a State of Minnesota silhouette serving as a captaincy patch. Well, folks, after saying this numerous times that I wanted to see what this jersey looked like, I am very, very excited to show you this design, or at least a version of it. Because remember, this is a prototype jersey, and it may not exactly be the final design that was pushed, but seeing that what I'm about to show you is a Fanatics replica, I think it is the design that ultimately got rejected. So anyways, without further ado, I present to you the Minnesota Wild's prototype black alternate jersey from that was supposed to be worn for the 2019-2020 NHL season. As you can see, it had a little Minnesota North Star put onto the sleeves. It has the same striping style as the dark green third jersey that came before this design back in the late 2000s, back when the Minnesota Wild brought this wordmark logo out for the first time on their green third jersey worn during the Reebok years. It's got the same striping style, not just on the sleeves, but this time on the chest as well. It has the little arm sleeve embroidery effect with a shooting star, as was actually discussed by Minnesota beat writer, I believe his name's Michael Rousseau, and he writes for The Athletic as well. Correct me if I'm wrong on the name. As you can see, the Minnesota Wild's primary logo is on the shoulders of this design, and as I said earlier, the State of Minnesota silhouette used for the captaincy patch. Also note the captaincy patch on the right side of the chest instead of the left to accommodate the word mark. And also note the tiny little forest green waist stripe on the bottom as well. So this is the front of the jersey. Also note the collar design with the Adidas 3 laces and the green collar insert, forest green, with the forest green collar trim. This is one thing that drives me crazy about Adidas designs, is the collar style. I really hope that whoever takes over the NHL's jerseys from here on in rectifies the collars. But anyway, I'm sure you want to see what the back looks like. So do I. So anyway, there is the back. So this is a Fanatics prototype jersey with Mikko Koivu's name and number kit on it. So notice a beige letter kit and beige numbers with forest green trim. Notice this jersey is a typical Adidas alternate jersey design that focuses on dark monochrome styling, where you've got a dark color on a black jersey base, or a dark jersey base. Like, for example, one example I would use is the Edmonton Oilers' current third jersey, the navy blue jersey with nothing but orange and no white, where it's dark on dark, even though the orange does contrast well on the navy. Same with the Philadelphia Flyers' third jersey, where they've got the bright orange striping on the sleeves and on the bottom of the waist. But then they've got the big orange nameplates, and they've got the big black on black numbers with a big white outline on them so that they're legible. Now this is, I would argue, overall, obviously the secondary color on this jersey being forest green is way darker than the orange on the Flyers' third jersey. But as you can see, this is the design. And am I going to bother with this picture here? That's just a picture of the collar, by the way, so it's not a big deal. It's just showing that it's a Fanatics replica. But yeah, so I want to talk about this jersey some more, because I remember about 4.5, 5 years ago when this design was first reported and the Wild were first reported to be bringing out a brand new third jersey for the 2019-20 season. Now, here's the thing, folks. At the time, the rumor was that the Minnesota Wild got denied by the NHL to use this jersey because it had failed TV testing miserably. Now, looking at this design for the first time, I find that really, really interesting. And I'll get into why shortly. Now, in recent years, there has been multiple dark-on-dark black jerseys made by Adidas and approved by NHL teams. And I don't see why this jersey, now that I'm looking at it, got denied. I mean, was this a final prototype and then maybe the Minnesota Wild said, you know what, screw it. I mean, at the time, it was just before the pandemic started in March of 2020. And at the time, I remember the rumor being that Minnesota was doing two things. Number one, at the time, they were pushing for a Winter Classic game, which they ultimately got to host in January of 2022, a year ago. And also at the time, there was the initial rumors about a brand new fourth jersey program, which ultimately ended up being what we now know as the reverse retro jersey program. So that's probably when the Minnesota Wild said, you know what, this jersey's been denied by the NHL multiple times with TV testing, and they probably said, you know what, we've got other ideas, we've got the reverse retro program coming up anyway, screw it. And then that's why they scrapped this design. So, as I said earlier, I was going to get back to this, but I find it very interesting that this design would have TV testing issues from the National Hockey League, when considering designs like this one have been approved and worn by the Toronto Maple Leafs, who, in my opinion, should not have a black jersey. And I'm sure some of you will disagree. We'll just have to agree to disagree. But you know, up close, the blue on black is fine. But from a distance, it's barely noticeable. And now as I say blue on black, all I can think of is an amazing song by a man named Kenny Wayne Shepherd. If you haven't heard that song, Blue on Black by him, I suggest you give it a listen. It's a great song in my opinion. But anyway, okay, I'm getting sidetracked. Anyway, but you see what I mean? You've got the black on black numbers. You've got royal blue striping on a black jersey, where up close you can see it. But from a distance, the blue bleeds into the black. And on top of that, you've got a darkened shibori patterned maple leaf crest on this design that from a distance is harder to see. So I guess in this case, because Mr. Justin Bieber was involved in the design process, I guess being super dark is totally fine. But when the Minnesota Wild want to do something similar, it's a problem. I guess next time they should get Justin Bieber to be involved in their design process, eh? Another one I want to throw in just for the fun of it, just to prove my point again. This design here, I'm actually very happy that San Jose retired that design this year, because you know what? I gotta say, this design up close, the computer circuitry board pattern in between the teal stripes is kind of neat, but from a distance, the teal striping, you could barely see it on TV, even on 4K. I've tried it. And it almost looked like they were wearing a head-to-toe practice uniform at times, because the teal, there's so little teal, and the striping is so dark from a distance. We're up close, you can see everything. But that's the problem. A lot of these designs are designed to look great up close or on a computer screen, but when they put them on the ice, the teal in this case bleeds into the black horribly, at least in my opinion. And let me see, okay, there's another one. And this design here, speaking of TV testing, not only was this design approved for the Hurricanes to wear in their Stadium Series game they played last month, and they actually coincidentally wore it yesterday as well. But look, it's red on black, and this monochromatic design was approved for an outdoor game, for crying out loud. So these designs, no problem. But Minnesota's design was a problem? I don't know. Maybe they initially, I wouldn't be surprised if they initially had like forest green numbers on the forest green chest stripe of that black jersey with maybe like a beige outline. And then the NHL said you got to change it. And then probably by the point that the Wild, I'm just speculating here. I'm just throwing my little fan theory here. But I would say that probably what happened, and why don't I just make it a little easier for you to understand what I'm trying to say here. But when you look at the numbers here, I would be the least bit surprised if it was reversed, where the number was forest green with a weedy beige colored outline around the number, instead of what you see here, the opposite, where the number was dark green with a beige outline. I bet that's probably why the NHL rejected it for TV testing, where, okay, you've got a dark green number on a dark green chest stripe on a black jersey. Kind of hard to make it legible, especially going with a standard number size, because this doesn't look like a number with a thick white border around it like Toronto's third or even the Flyers' current third. And I'm thinking that by the point in time where they got to, or by the time they got to the point where they actually smartened up and made the numbers beige instead of dark green, that's probably when the Wild said, you know what, NHL, forget it. We've got the reverse retro program coming up and a Winter Classic happening soon anyway. Screw it. We'll let this design just be something that's just a past memory and just something that was considered but never utilized. And another example I want to throw in here, just because we're talking about dark on dark uniforms that actually didn't get rejected. See what I mean about the Adidas era? So many dark on dark monochromatic jerseys in the Adidas era. Something that I'm not a fan of, to be quite honest. The Flyers' third jersey, I've gotten to the point where it's not the worst third jersey in the world. I think once in a while it's actually okay. The Sharks' third jersey, the stealth one, I'm glad it's gone. Toronto doing a black jersey to me is just not right. Toronto has never done black. I don't care if Justin Bieber was involved in the design process. The Maple Leafs wear blue, not black. And as for Tampa Bay here, I mean, these jerseys were just boring. I mean, you've got the gradient on the sleeves, which, you know, I thought it was actually kind of neat. But besides that, what else is there? You've got gray numbers with a light silvery gray, light gray outline on them. I mean, but designs like this, and this one's one of the lesser problem designs in my opinion. At least the numbers are a little bit brighter on that, more legible. But the NHL approves this design. The NHL then approves this design. Well, this design came before the other one. Actually, the other one got scrapped initially. The Hurricanes won because of the pandemic. That game wasn't played till last month. I actually remember hearing that was supposed to be against Pittsburgh before Obviously, the pandemic situation kiboshed their plans for a Stadium Series game last year in 2022. Actually, no, last year was the Stadium Series game between Tampa and Nashville. But I guess the Hurricanes and the NHL agreed to delay their outdoor game until this season. Anyway, you know what I mean. But then they approved this design. Why don't I quickly pull up the Flyers third jersey too while we're at it? I mean, I'm sorry for the delay here, folks, but I just want to make sure that I show another one just to discuss what I'm trying to say. That, you know, I find it really, really interesting. Boy, if I could just find a picture. Jeez Louise, they're making it hard on me tonight. All right, I'll use an old picture for old time's sake. From the Reebok era. I don't think it's going to matter. But here. You see what I mean? The NHL gave the Philadelphia Flyers the green light to wear this black on black design. What was the problem with this? What's the problem with this? You know what I'm saying? I think that it has just enough visual contrast that at this point in the design, I think that as a third jersey, it would have been fine. Now, am I honestly glad that Minnesota didn't wear this? I have to be honest, yes. I think that the monochrome business here, just forced green on black, in my opinion, just does not work. At least the Maple Leafs royal blue is brighter than forest green. The Flyers orange is much brighter than this. It's the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, Tampa Bay had a gray and silver. They're, you know, at least the gray was a little bit lighter looking than the forest green. This is dark on dark gone wrong, in my opinion. So I'm glad that Minnesota did not wear this. But at the same time, this jersey is actually just a few tweaks away, in my opinion, from actually being doable. Like, for example, I think maybe if the main striping was beige and there was like a dark green stripe in between, and this striping here was moved down here, I think that they could have made this design actually work. So the way it is here, I do agree. I do think it's good that they did not wear it. But do I think this design should have been banned from TV testing if the other designs I mentioned earlier were okayed? No, that's ridiculous. So clearly, I think what happened by the end of it is that the Wild said, you know what, forget it. We're not going to bother. But I must say, am I ever glad that we finally got to see this jersey and what it would have looked like if Minnesota had approved it. And I must say, I do think that Minnesota made the right call, even though, as I said years ago, I think a black third jersey in their case, especially when the North Stars originally did actually use a black jersey at one point and also had black accenting on their white and Kelly green jerseys by the end of the 1980s, even though I know the white one had black on it starting in 1981. I thought that would have been a potential cool homage to the North Stars, but, you know, just not this design. So I think the Wild did make the right call. What do you guys think? I know I've been talking for about 20 minutes, but there was a bunch of stuff I wanted to discuss. I think it is so cool that this prototype jersey has surfaced, and I'll try to see where this jersey first surfaced. It might have surfaced on eBay. I'll see if it did, and if it did, I'll post a link to it down below so that you can take a look at it. But anyways, folks, feel free to leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this design. I think that, you know what, some parts of it are actually cool. I like the state silhouette captaincy patch. I think the idea of a black jersey in this case is actually could have been really interesting, but I think they made the right call not doing this one. Anyways, feel free to comment down below. With that, folks, I'm going to call it a wrap at this point. So with that, take care, and as I always say, bye for now.